And welcome to this week's episode of ThinkTank Thursday. I'm Candy Kelly, and I am thrilled to be with you this week. Thank you for coming. Before we begin, I want to give a thank you to our 2023 Think Tank sponsors, Simnox, Redemption Plus, Roller, Betson, and Delta Strike. We appreciate their support, which helps us to provide you with new episodes when they release. So as you guys have heard by now, on Thursdays, Trainertainment likes to spend a little bit of time away from all the doing that is to be done and to spend some time thinking. And so thank you for thinking with us today. Today's guest is from one of the sponsors that I just mentioned. I am bringing on Justin Michaels from Redemption Plus. Justin Michaels has been in the industry for quite some time, and we are going to jump into all the things that you need to consider when you're looking at a redemption counters versus redemption stores. It's a wealth of information. I'm sure you're going to get some key takeaways from this interview. So let's jump on in. Why don't we? Welcome to ThinkTank Thursday, Justin.
Thanks for having me. Good
Awesome.
to be here.
For those out there who may not know who you are, why don't you take a few minutes to tell them who you are, where you work, and kind of what it is, what service you guys provide in the industry?
Sure. So I'm Justin Michaels with Redemption Plus. I'm an account executive. Been with the company for 20 years as of July, which is crazy to think about. Makes me feel old too. But my grandparents, they started a family entertainment center in 1950, and I grew up there in the 80s and 90s as a manager. Worked in the game room. And then I was buying product from Redemption Plus at the time while I was going to school. And they offered me a job, and that was 2003. And I've been there ever since. But I'm an account executive, so I work on new business development and also manage some key accounts. And, Redemption Plus is an importer and wholesaler of toys and novelties, but kind of more importantly, and what differentiates us from other suppliers is, we truly partner with family entertainment centers to help them plan and implement profitable redemption programs. And we do that, in a variety of ways. One being experiential design. We design a lot of redemption stores, redemption counters, assortment planning. We do merchandising strategies, on-site merchandising as you're opening up. And then training, we do some training as well, just more specifically around the redemption process. And then technology, we've kind of been an innovator over the years with integrating with the point of sale systems to help, manage inventory, whether it be an electronic packing list or digital packing list. I don't want to bore you with too much jargon, but those are all tools to help you manage your inventory. So that's really what I do and what Redemption Plus is. But I love the industry. And just to add a little bit about our partnership, I remember Beth flying up years ago and telling us, "Hey, I'm gonna start this company, the sales company and training company," and we've been a partner since day one. So it's awesome what you guys do as well for the industry to help people grow sales and improve their operations. So we've really enjoyed the partnership over the years.
We do too. Beth always talks about some of her like the first people to believe in her, and like always Redemption Plus comes up. I did not realize you left your grandparents to work for a vendor. Were your grandparents sad?
It's funny because my grandparents actually sold the business to Frank Lacassi, who now owns Amusement Connect. And so he's still an operator, and that's kind of how he's, developed his system. But I was working for him as, a route operator. So I was servicing, bowling centers and amusement parks and just different types of FECs. So, I was sad when they sold the business, but it kind of was my stepping stone to just be a lifer in the business. I always kind of joke, you see a lot of us, like we've been at it a long time. And I tell customers, new people that are getting into into the family entertainment center and out of home entertainment center industry, like, be careful because you're never getting out. It's so much fun and so rewarding. It seems like all of us have really been in a long time, but I love it. I truly do.
It's one of my favorite things about some of these interviews is I don't always know everyone's backstory. And so to give them the opportunity to share that with our audience, I have learned like That some people had like traveling attractions that they did, and that's how they developed, and like just these interesting backstories where it's like there are so many who were exposed at a young age, and that exposure has turned into a lifelong career, which is very cool.
Yep, that's definitely my case for sure.
All right, so Justin's on here to talk to us about all things redemption, because I know for some out there it can be a confusing topic and there's a lot of choices to be had. And then if you ever go on their website and look at all of the options that you could put in your redemption store, that in itself can be overwhelming. But let's talk about from the very beginning, or if I'm ready to transition, like I've been doing self-redeeming, but I'm ready to transition. What percentage of like a square footage, how much space should there allocate to the redemption? Is that determined based off the number of arcade games they have, or just the space in general? How do you guys walk someone through that process?
That's a great question. That's usually one of the first ones I get, of course, but kind of a good rule of thumb or back of the napkin calculation is these games have gotten so big. I mean, over the years, they continue to get taller and bigger. And I think, on average, like the square footage is like 65 to 70 square feet per game. Do you want to allocate? So let's take 1,000 square feet, for instance, which is going to be a little bit smaller footprint arcade. You do the math there. You're gonna make me do math, Candy. I think that's roughly around 15 games. So somebody that has only 1,000 square feet is probably better suited to allocate, space for a prize counter. So another calculation that we use is for every 1,000 square feet of game room space, you should allocate 125 towards the prize area. So let's say, for instance, a little bit bigger arcade footprint, like maybe 4,000 square feet, you're going to be able to kind of justify that 5 to 600, which is going to be a store. So, we've seen stores that are bigger, but we've found over the years after designing these and through a lot of trial and error, full transparency, that 5 to 600 square feet is kind of that sweet spot. So if you have that larger arcade, it's definitely probably a better idea to consider the store.
And we'll jump into the benefits of a store versus the counter in a little bit, but talking more about like the placement. So I had never heard that. So for every 1,000 feet, 1,000 square feet of arcade is essentially equal to about 125 square feet of redemption space. So that's something that people can like kind of sink their teeth into if they're doing some pre-planning before they reach out to you guys.
Yep. So that's usually like if you're in the research and development stage, like that's a good calculation to kind of use. And a lot of that we've gotten from our distributor partners too, the game distributor partners, working with them.
Yeah. So when we're looking at redemption and so I know how much space I need to allocate to it. Now, where in my facility should I put it? And I feel like there's a lot of schools of thoughts about this. So why don't we just put this, and you're an expert, tell us what your school of thought is about where in the location it should really be positioned.
Okay, so that's a great question, and it kind of segues nicely from the last one. Like it's really all about visibility and good sight lines. Because really, like, let's start with the why. Like, why do we even have a redemption area, a price counter, or store? It's really that area that's going to drive sales in the game room. The games, I always tell people this too, the games are a lot like cash registers, right? And they're fun to play, but it's really the prizes that drive sales. And, talking about my background, in the 80s and 90s, video was everywhere. It was Mortal Kombat. We were doing like Mortal Kombat tournaments at my grandparents' place with people out the door and around the corner and just it was all quarters back then, but emptying, the cash box and on a Saturday, like time and time again. And video was just so huge. But then, home consoles kind of found their way into the marketplace. And, my kids now, they have tablets and they have a Nintendo Switch. I have 2 Xboxes here. So they have a lot of video at home, and there's still a lot of great video on the market. And you're seeing VR and stuff like that. But when you look at an arcade now versus the 90s, it's almost 70-80% redemption games in the total mix of the game layout. And that's because, that's just the way it works. Like kids have good video at home. they want to come and win something. So back to your question, you really want to have the player's eye on the prize all the time. So up front, somewhere close where they can see it, close to an entrance. So when we're looking at, a customer's layout, a lot of times they might have worked with an architect and they don't really understand the psychology behind all that. So it's kind of tucked away in the back corner. So we're always, advocating for like put it somewhere with good sight lines throughout the facility. So people are always seeing that and wanting to play games, and the game room too, really.
We share the same philosophy then as to where it can be. I have been to some centers where it's in the back. And unfortunately, like, I don't even realize it's there unless I walk back there. Like, I'm walking through an arcade and I assume it's there because of my knowledge of this industry. But if I put myself in just a normal, like, kid mindset or, teen or tween mindset, if I don't see it, then I may not think it's there. And then if that's really what drives me to play the games, I may not be as interested in it.
Yeah, and I think too, especially with my bowling customers, like some of the more like traditional bowling centers that are adding games, and maybe they don't have the square footage to justify the big game room. They're incorporating the price counter into the main point of sale where they're selling bowling, food, and beverage. So there's some one, you're going to have the visibility because everybody's coming there, main point of sale. But two, there's some labor savings there as well because they're able to kind of man all three stations with, one person. So those are things too to think about just in terms of labor and staffing.
My most favorite design I've seen of that, where it's the shared resource of labor there. Like, if I walked in from this area, it was kind of like an oval desk that went around, but there was this wall in the middle of it. And so in this area, like on that wall was the TV that showed me the packages for the attractions and all of that stuff. They greeted me right there. But they literally could just walk around the wall. And on the other side was a redemption wall, and then they could redeem. And so you shared the front desk and redemption people because they could walk around this oval desk the whole time. And I thought that was a very neat design.
Yeah, we've seen some like that. Andy B's had a counter like that in Springfield for a while. I've seen some others like that, but the dual purpose works really well. Like I said, for if you're, and I always hear that labor is a big thing, and it's a great way to kind of save on some labor there.
Now, we've talked about space and we've talked about like where. Now, I think the big question that comes up for people is like, well, what is best for me, a counter versus a store? And I'm even going to put you on the spot a little bit to talk about those self-redeeming machineries that are out there. Like, so I can feed it and I press like B3 and that door opens and I get the thing out. How do you help people decide that? Because I do feel like sometimes like some smaller clients that we work with, sometimes they're like, oh, we're going to get a full redemption store. And I'm like, you're going to have 20 arcade games. I'm not sure a store is the best, but I'm like, I always send them to you guys. I'm like, talk to Redemption Plus. I'll walk you through that process. So help us through that process. Like, which should they choose?
So let's start with like a self-contained machine. There's a couple on the market, Prizmatic, Prize Hub, some others, and they're great machines. And I think the cool thing about them that I've seen is they've allowed you to put redemption in places where you maybe couldn't have before, like, and they can operate at nighttime. They're 24 hours, you don't have to staff them. Again, labor savings. You see them on cruise ships now. I see them in resorts and things like that where you're not staffing the arcade. So I think that that's definitely a bonus. I think the thing that we've seen is that there's kind of a cap to the amount of revenue that you can do with them. And if you're doing really high volumes, like with traffic, there can be a real log jam there. In terms of like waiting your turn to turn in the tickets and that sort of thing. So I've seen them also be really successful in an arcade where you have a prize center or a prize counter or a room, and they kind of help with overflow. So you'll put them in addition to your prize area. So if you are busy, folks can use that and kind of self-serve, and that'll help, with quicker turns and getting people through.
Oh, that's interesting, especially for some that have like the lesser ticket amounts that a lot of times those machineries don't do the huge prizes. At least the ones that I've come across in the industry, I don't see the really big heavy ticket number prices in there. So
Yeah, and I think too, like you are limited as to kind of how much product you can put in it and that sort of thing. But they're great machines and they definitely serve a purpose. Onto the prize counter.
Mhm.
If you have the smaller footprint, I think they're great. We have some smaller arcades that do incredible numbers with a traditional counter, 12-foot redemption counter. And they're doing amazing numbers. My thing is I have three small kids and we go to the local family entertainment center. They have a traditional prize counter. And I can tell you, like, my daughter's 5. She wants to see every little tattoo in the bin. And it can make for a little bit of a logjam. So, there's ways around it. You can have multiple point of sales so you can kind of move people through it. We use some merchandising strategies sometimes where maybe we mirror the smaller stuff on both sides so there's less decisions to be made. But I'm of the opinion from customer feedback that the store's the way to go if you have the space, for a few different reasons. One, I kind of hit on it. I think on a Saturday, when you're at peak volumes, you're gonna, when the customer is able to self-serve, you're able to turn people through. That's throughput, right? You're getting more people through on a busy Saturday. So that's going to allow you to do more revenue because you're getting people kind of in and out of the store quicker. Two, we talked about games earlier. Like I look at these games now, they're all big, they're LED lit, so they look super cool. And then I see sometimes people have these redemption spaces and it's like this dark, kind of dingy space. So we're starting to incorporate a lot of LED lighting into our designs, and it really competes with the game room, right? It's kind of, you see it, it's exciting. We've gone to like theming sections, so it's kind of a more retail environment. So you'll have a lighting section and you'll have like an action gear section, and then you'll have like a fashionista section. And I think with the theming, it's almost like, if you go into the grocery store, you know where you're going. There's a produce section and there's
Yep.
dairy and there's frozen and there's meat. And so I think when, a customer can come in, a guest, and see kind of a more organized approach and self-serve, it's just more inviting. It's going to help them make decisions quicker. And then the other kind of key component is I'm hearing that it takes less labor to staff it. Like usually you can staff it with one person. With the counter, it usually takes a couple people. So,
Mhm.
that's my opinion based on the feedback that I received over, the last decade. Because really that's the way the industry's gone, is more towards the store, especially with bigger arcades.
I definitely see more of the stores now. I always tell people, I'm like, when you're talking about, especially some of the younger kids, when they have 500 tickets or credits, tickets, I think shows our age or how long we've been in this industry a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Tickets anymore, but when they have 500 credits, that's like $500 to them. Like I have
Yes.
an 11-year-old and a 6-year-old, and so my 6-year-old will change her mind a couple of times because I'm like, okay, well, if you take that, you only have this many left, and she's like, oh well, then no, I'm putting that back. And then at a counter, there is someone who has to do that. They have to take that item back and put it back in there, or they have to show them oh, here's the purple duck and the pink duck, and like whatever the variations of that prize may be. And there's taking the time doing that, where in a store area, she can make her own choices and she has kind of
Yeah.
that autonomy to do that without feeling rushed.
Yeah, I think it's fun for the kids, right? It's kind of their first shopping experience and they're empowered to make decisions and they have a currency, which is points or tickets. And, it's a lot of fun for them too, I think.
Now, with you being at Redemption Plus for 20 years and seeing this transition from counter
Mhm.
more towards store, because it was only counters for a very long time, in the transition, was it difficult sometimes to get operators to be on board with that? Were there some concerns about theft or about just because we have never had, like before that, things just weren't in the open. They were always an encounter, always behind someone. You had to get someone to give it to you. So, what was that transition like to work through that?
You're 100% right. And theft is always the main concern that comes
Okay.
up. Um, and I think there's ways to, with your design, to, you don't want to have spots where people can hide. And, so I think having more of an open kind of concept, which we incorporate into our designs, keeps people from, stealing things. But like we live in a culture where, self-checkout is kind of, it's the thing, I mean, you go to any major retail or grocery store, you're gonna have a self-checkout. Um, and what I hear from some of the biggest operators in the industry who are running stores is that the labor savings kind of far exceeds any kind of shrinkage, a few Tootsie Rolls in the pocket, that sort of thing. But there was some pushback, over the years about that. People definitely wanted the control. But I've seen some bigger operators like start to test it in some locations, like at a store, and then
Mhm.
they've come back and we've redone all their locations with stores. So I sound like I'm really advocating for the store, but that's not just my personal like preference. And that's based on years of customer feedback.
Um, it's also the trends of the industry and keeping up with those trends. And as the industry is moving, you do see more stores. And so to be competitive and to be, and like you said, those games are huge. And so you don't want your redemption area to be, overshadowed by the games because they can't find the redemption area because these games are so bright and lit and huge as well.
Yep.
All right, so we've chosen what we want, whether it's a counter or a store. Now the fun part, we get to kind of choose the type of things that we're putting in there. What role does Redemption Plus play in helping people choose their role? And what are other kind of statistics that you kind of look at for that location to help them make the right choices of the type of diverse prizes they can have?
Yeah, so I think the questions like I'm going to ask if it's a new customer is, what's your target, age demographic? Are you more of a destination, like a touristy type place? Like how many times your guests going to come here? If it's a more touristy type location, like I'm just thinking right now, like the Caribbean, where I've just more recently have been selling products into the Caribbean, and like their guests might come once a year, whereas the local FEC, your guests could come 3-4 times a month. So I think those are the things you want to take into consideration. Is somebody coming once a year? Are they going to be able to win enough tickets to win an Xbox? Right. So you want to look at that. And then, kind of crafting the overall mix, like, with the card systems, like we've been able to look at a lot of data and aggregate a lot of data over the years, which is nice. So we can see what's truly being redeemed. And so we have identified what we call player types, right? So
Yes, I love
that's
this.
how nerdy we get about this. So
And just for as
there's
a side note, there is a think tank where I had a think tank with Josh, who he
okay.
walks me through every single customer archetype, I think is what you guys call them,
Mm-hmm.
or player archetypes. He walks me through all the different types and what each one of those would be looking for in your center in terms of
Yep.
prizes. And so if anyone has not seen that, you can go in our archives and it is there. And I'll have it linked here because it is very, very interesting how you guys have taken the data you've got had access to and created these profiles of people.
Yeah, good. Okay, so Josh broke that down. Good. So
Yeah.
I won't take us
I
too
think there's
far.
four, right? There's four. Just to give
Yes.
us a quick recap, there's four, I think. I don't remember their names though.
So there's Impulse, which skews a little bit younger. They're going to win a couple hundred tickets. They're going to redeem them then and there. Then there's the Trader, which is going to win the couple hundred tickets, kind of see something, spend a little bit more, kind of, they're going to get something more like 400 to like 600. And then you have like Savers and Super Savers, which really become like the lifeblood of your arcade. And you want those folks, to be saving. They're gonna, bank points. They're gonna encourage friends and family, like, hey, let's go back. They're the ones that are playing for the Xboxes and things like that. And then you're able to market to those too through, through your point of sale. You can start to collect like emails, run, campaigns or marketing campaigns for them to draw them back and that sort of thing. So we look at that and then we're going to craft kind of an overall mix. So we have stuff for all of those different types of players.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to be looking at licenses too. Like this has been a great summer for licenses. Mario was a big hit. Barbie, of course, has
Barbie.
just been crazy. We've been selling a ton of Barbie stuff. Um, so we have a lot of theaters. I mean, licensed stuff, on trend licensed stuff is always popular. Not to be a commercial, but we sell over 30 different licenses. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles right now. So we're kind of looking at a mix of kind of staple imports along with on trend licenses for the current time, and kind of putting it together that way. And that's really how we craft those assortment plans.
Um, we talked, which one of those four customer archetypes is the most, is it the saver or the super saver? Like, what is one of the lower tiers that the bulk of the people who come to your arcade are going to fall into? Which one is that?
Yeah, so I mean, just looking at it, it's always going to be the impulse and the trader. That's going to be
Okay.
like the bulk. But I'm glad you brought that up because that's kind of going to be the bulk of what's being redeemed. But I have like
Mm-hmm.
customers like say, "Hey, we've had this Xbox forever. It's not moving." So that's where retail and redemption are a little different. So I could walk into the local family entertainment center and see that Xbox and think, you know what, I'm going to play for that. And then I could come back again and say, hey, I'm playing for that. And then I could see something new and redeem my tickets for something completely different. And where that Xbox never moved, it did its job psychologically.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the difference between retail and redemption,
When
so
I was in franchising, I used to tell my franchisees to find like a local game stop or some kind of video game location in their area to partner with them and get an empty box. And in exchange, it could look like an Xbox was out there or a PlayStation or whatever.
yeah,
Inside that box is really just a gift card that would take over the cost of that Xbox at the time. And so then that gift card obviously was a lot of times to the partner. And so it gave us a nice little partnership. But then I didn't have to house that inventory. They just gave me an empty box. And then as soon as someone wanted it, I could get them a gift card and send them over there.
that's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, I've seen people. I mean, it's crazy. I've seen people put like puppies, like it's not a real puppy, but you can win a
Yeah.
dog from, PetSmart or, it's just nuts. I mean, but it's just all about getting people excited to want to play and save and come back. That's really kind of what it's all about. And also if people are gonna redeem like those, traders, the impulse folks, like if they're going to win something that's, more of like an import item, you want it to be a good quality item or something unique. Licenses are important, but a lot of the trending stuff I've seen on TikTok has all been like fidgety type toys, So I think having kind of unique stuff too that they can't just get at the local, Walmart or big box retailer, that's important too.
I have another question for you about trends that I didn't prep you for. So, 20 years ago and 15 years ago, children were really the focus. Kids were the main focus of family entertainment centers. But in the
Yep.
last 7 to 10 years, that trend has switched to young professionals and adults being part of the mix and us considering them more as operators are making decisions about what they do in their businesses. So, what about adult themed redemption items? Are you seeing more people incorporate those into their redemption stores and counters?
Yeah, absolutely. Looking at, we do some reporting for like some of our larger customers, just like, hey, what's been redeemed, or what are we buying, kind of by bucket, and we'll break it down by bucket and that sort of thing. So, like when it comes to more adult items, we're seeing like a lot of nostalgia type stuff, like 80s. We started to carry like, Back to the Future lunch boxes and Nintendo stuff. Like Nintendo is still really popular with people, a little bit older crowd. So the nostalgia stuff is done really well. Then a lot of like electronics, like smaller appliances and things like that have done well. The electronics are always like a good option. I'm seeing like sports memorabilia. In a lot of places, we recommend that you include a lot of, I'm here in KC, so I got to, my Chiefs, that's big. There's
Yep.
just a lot of major sports stuff that's really popular and collegiate. Um, so yeah, we always want to incorporate a lot of that stuff. I don't know about a lot, but like a certain percentage, maybe 5-10% kind of, and that stuff does move and it drives sales too. So
I just know that as our trends shift, there are more adults that just come as adults without kids sometimes in family entertainment centers because they're
yeah.
just all right. He may not plug himself, but anybody who doesn't know, Redemption Plus has their own YouTube channel too. So where he's talking about some of these trends of the items that you could be putting in your redemption counters. I believe it's called Eyes on the Prize is what the series is called. And does Megan still host that?
Oh yeah, Megan's our YouTube star.
Megan Birch hosts this Eye on the Prize, and I think it's like your top 5 or 10 items that you guys are moving right then, right? Isn't that what the
Yeah, we do that regularly, monthly. And then she's done a whole like redemption specific training program as well that you can find. There's all kinds of good YouTube content, and she's really been the driver behind it and done a really nice job with that whole program. It's good to see all that content. I appreciate you mentioning that.
Random question for you. Is there one redemption item that you are like, it's in every single counter or store just about? Like everyone you go to almost, they always have X.
Yeah, it's funny because you're gonna like it's always kind of like the staple 100 top 100 items, but like ninja swords, like plastic ninja swords, we sell a ton of them. What's funny? I'll share a quick story. We brought in pink ninja swords into our mix a couple years, like maybe 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And the pink ninjas just thinking, oh, like they'll go and my daughter might want one, whoever. Like we were not able to like move a single one. And so customers are like, these pink swords aren't moving. So we had a whole like meeting company wide, like, what do we do? And we all went to the warehouse and pulled out all the pink ninja swords and donated them to charity. But yeah, those are the problems we have over here at Redemption Plus. Pink ninja swords. But no, I see ninja swords everywhere. Trying to think right now. That's a good staple item. And then in your bins, of course, there's always going to be army men, and even after, I remember as a kid seeing that stuff, and even to this day, I mean, I think kids love that kind of stuff. It's
Parachute people. I kind of always see it, everyone. And then those weird round things that you turn inside out and you lay it on a
poppers,
table.
yeah.
They just call poppers. Yeah, I see those at almost everyone too.
Yeah, people always ask me what I do, and I tell some of my friends, and they get a kick out of it. Like, oh, it's like the movie Big, and I'm like, yeah, but it's serious business here. It's fun, but we're in the business of helping our customers be successful and drive sales and all that. And the toy part of it's fun, but it's serious business too, right?
Yes, definitely. We won't talk about all of them, but just to bear the warning, what is the number one mistake you feel like people make when they're thinking about their redemption area?
I think kind of the number one thing is you got to care about it. I walk into multi-million dollar facilities all the time and everything looks beautiful. And then I see the redemption area and it's not up to par, and their inventory is a mess and that sort of thing. And I think, when it comes to food and beverage, they're doing counts and their inventory is right on and they're keeping track of their costs and all those things. And I don't know if it's just that they don't care, or the other mistake could be that they haven't educated themselves enough to truly understand the importance of it and how to manage it, to drive sales, and or they don't understand the key performance indicators like cost, how to get to a proper cost of sales, and markup, and really how profitability works in the game rooms. They think they just plug in the machines and start counting cash, and they're just kind of flying blind by the seat of their pants. So I think caring or kind of lack of knowledge around it is a big mistake. And then just like we've talked a little bit about design, storage is another thing. Especially I see this in the bowling space. Centers don't think about allocating space close to the redemption area. And I've seen a lot of bowling centers like to keep a lot of storage behind the lanes. So you'll have some poor kid on a Saturday with a cart running across the center behind the lanes and bringing product over to restock. So I think storage is one.
You gave me a great segue into
Okay,
one of
all right.
as far as you talked about knowledge, and
Uh-huh.
I'm going to tell them about the event that Redemption. I'm not even sure how often you guys put on the Redemption Boot Camp so that you can learn some of this knowledge that you may not have.
Yeah, so we were doing that at least a couple times a year. I think we have one coming up. I should know. I know we've got one planned the next 6 months or so. I can
We'll
get
look
you
up.
dates on that,
I'll
but
look
keep,
for it so we can put it on the bottom of this
yeah,
when it actually.
follow us on LinkedIn and be sure to check the site. Sign up for our newsletter, monthly emails. The other thing I'll say is we do a lot of training around the trade shows too. So we've been doing like training sessions at IAPA at certain times throughout each day where Megan will do a workshop with you. And then we also have a full redemption training program that's all video based that we can send you to. But yeah, we really put an emphasis on trying to educate our customers in the industry on best practices and all of those things.
So if you feel lost, there's no reason why you guys have to feel lost out there. There are resources. You just have to utilize them, such as this Redemption Bootcamp or any of these other resources out there. All right. Before we get to the signature question, we know that what we do is we provide memories because what we do
Yep.
is not as tangible, except you guys actually provide a tangible takeaway when people leave in a facility. So, but really, what is Redemption Plus's philosophy about how redemption and the merchandise that you choose for redemption plays a role in creating and like really cementing those memories for people?
You know, I think kind of the last thing that a guest typically does is they're going to redeem their points, right, at the redemption counter or in the store redemption area. So, um, I'll get to the product thing in a minute, but this is me preaching to you. I've been pretty preachy today, but you can tell I'm passionate about it.
Yes.
You want to make that a really memorable experience, right? If that's the last kind of interaction they're going to have with your business and your staff, just make sure it's a memorable one for them. And then two, just, more specifically to your question, product is having good quality product. So even if it's kind of a more generic import, like having good quality packaging. So we put an emphasis on having good quality packaging and good quality product, even if it's at a lower price point. So, I see sometimes like an item like a lava lamp might come in a white China box. We have good retail packaging. It looks like something you would get at a retail store, and it's a good product. It's going to work. So I think, if you leave, the thing's broken, as you're driving out the parking lot, you're throwing it in the trash, like what kind of memory is that going to make? But if you have a good quality item that you're bringing home and you can enjoy for a long time, like, you can think, hey, I got that there. That's a good product. I want to go back. We had a great time. I really think that's what we do. I've told coworkers and customers that I think we're in the business of helping families have a good time. And I think in today's day and age, that's kind of a noble thing, So, so I think that's kind of really how our products help people
I think
make
those are
memories.
beautiful. I think those go together very well because, as I said, I have two kids, and so as mom, the things that you think about is, oh my gosh, this process is so excruciating if it's not done well. If I don't have a good trained staff there who's making it a memorable, at least like as easy as it can be process for the parents. Because let me assure you, most of the time the parents don't care about the redemption stuff. It's like just choose something, let us get out of here type of thing. And so, how do you make it
Yep.
easier for them? And then you stand in a line for 10 minutes to get it, and then like it breaks before, as soon as you close the door and get on the road. It's like and so I think both of those things you're talking about, having good quality products, and also having a system that realizes that if I'm frustrated walking out the door as a guest because it was such a horrible experience at redemption, I am putting a shadow on everything else the rest of my team may have done to make that experience a fantastic
Exactly.
experience. And so I need to know how important it is that last interaction is. So I think both your answers
And
definitely that
I
memory.
think too, like, um, it's that and just giving a good value because essentially we're in the business of like the guests. Most of my customers have a cost of sales around like 15 to 20%. So we're in the business of the guest giving you $1 and us giving them like 20 cents back. And they're happy when you do it right. So I think it's having good quality product, but it has to be marked up the proper way because you really want a percentage of people to win and be happy. So I also see people like marking their stuff up way too much. You know, you go in and you spend $60 and you walk out with a Tootsie Roll. Like, what kind of value did you really
Right.
give? Right. And you're kind of being greedy. And are they really going to want to come back? So I think too, a lot of that, and that might be a whole nother conversation, is just kind of markup, payout, cost of goods and things, but just giving that good value to your customers. So when they do leave, they feel like they got their money's worth.
Justin, I feel like we could probably dive way more into redemption, but they won't watch
Oh
it for
yeah.
that long. I don't know. Um, but we like to end Think Tank with a signature Think Tank question. Are you, do you
Okay.
think you're ready for it?
I'm ready.
What are you doing on a consistent basis to grow yourself?
Oh, that's a good question. Kind of physically, I've been trying to really like eat better. I'm in my 40s now, so I've noticed that my body needs more sleep. I need to drink
It's
more
so hard to
water.
eat well on the road though sometimes. It is so
It, it, it is.
that is like the bane of my existence in travel is like I will be doing great at home and then I'll go home and like we'll land late and lately no restaurants are staying decent restaurants are staying open later and it's like okay, so my choices are junk. Like how do I make
Yeah.
the best of the choice that I got?
So that's one thing, like physically, like making sure I'm getting the sleep that I need to get, which is tough on the road too. Sometimes I don't know about you, but hotels can be tough to sleep in. And then I like to read. Like I feel like Redemption Plus is probably a lot aligned with Traintertainment that we're always wanting to learn. We're reading some Covey right now, Seven Habits. There's always books. Tipton's great about that. Here's a good book, and the Simon Sinek's of the world, and we've read everything. So trying to read. I've been through some sales training in the past, and I like to kind of revisit some of that from time to time to just, I'll go back and listen to some things. So I think just kind of, educating myself, reading, and just taking care of myself, is kind of what I do to kind of stay sharp.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for your time today. Where can people find you if they want to learn more about you or about Redemption Plus or get access to some of these great resources that you guys produce and put out there?
Sure. So LinkedIn is a great place. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find Redemption Plus on LinkedIn. Our website, redemptionplus.com. It's a great website. It's filled with a lot of great information. You can reach out to me directly. My contact info is on the site, redemptionplus.com, contact us page. But yeah, if you're an existing center or you're new to the industry and you're wanting to partner with somebody that can help you, with all things redemption, that's really what we do. And I'm passionate if you can't tell about it. And I really love showing people, how to make money in that space and that kind of that segment of their business. And then, delivering great guest experiences too. Like I really am passionate about that. So I appreciate you having me today.
Awesome. Well, thank you again for your time.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Candy.
Again, I want to say thank you to Justin for his time today, for coming and spending that time with us. Go check him out at Redemption Plus, and they have so many great resources to increase your knowledge about redemption. So if you have not yet, be sure to check out that YouTube channel. There is lots of great information there. Again, thank you for taking the time to join us. Thank you once more to my 2023 digital sponsors. If you have a Think Tank idea, if you want to be a guest on Think Tank, if you want to sponsor Think Tank, you can contact me, Candy at trainertainment.net, and we'll gladly talk about whatever it is. And then make sure to check out where you can connect with us in real life. All of our upcoming events and appearances can be found at trainertainment.net under our events menu. Thank you all, and I'll catch you on the next episode.